A family friend of mine used to work in private wealth management. One of her jobs was diversification of her clients' assets on the stock market. Out of nowhere she gets a call from a representative of one of her very big private clients, to sell all the stocks of a big airline and move the liquidity somewhere else. No buts, and if needed they could sell an up to 5% below market as long as the shares are sold quickly. This was extremely weird, as the stock price of the company was pretty stable, and specifically this client's portfolio was heavily hedged with this stake, but she didn't think much of it. Oftentimes her clients did this for personal reasons, such as having a bad experience on a plane of the company, etc. 2 days later, one of her colleagues that she shared this peculiar story, told her how the airline stock price started slowly but surely falling. Some people were selling off their shares too, which were gladly bought by the market at increasing prices. The next day AA Flight 11 crashed into the North Tower of the WTC in New York. My mom and I were on the highway driving home, and there was a semi-truck in the lane next to us. Suddenly the semi swerved into our lane. Luckily my mom was able to get out of the way before it hit us, but soon after I began feeling strangely. The entire right side of my face felt hot and sticky, I tasted blood, and smelled the very pungent scent of gasoline. Then my head and right arm started to ache really badly, and I couldn't feel my legs. Just as soon as the pain started to worsen, it went away, replaced with a cold eerie chill. I told my mom about this and she couldn't come up with an explanation. I think I was feeling the pain in another timeline where my mom wasn't able to avoid that semi. This happened about 7 or 8 years ago. My husband and I were laying in the bed one night, watching television. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw a child in the doorway of our bedroom. Thinking it was our only child at the time, I tapped my hubby and said, "Hey, look, I think Connor is going to try to scare us." He turns and looks and this child walked into our room. I can't explain it, because it was one of those moments that seemed somehow different. We watched in silence, soon realizing that this child was not our son. He toddles in, head slightly tilted back, curls bouncing and diapers squishing as he goes to the end of our bed. We see his head go down, like he was crouching, and when we got up to look he was gone. I looked at Chris, my husband, and said, "Did we just see a ghost?" Then, almost as an afterthought, I said, "Well, we know if we have another baby, and he has curls, that he was here before he was born." We both laugh, because we were not trying for another baby at the time. Fascinated, we go to check on our son, and he was fast asleep. A few months later, I'm pregnant. So fast forward and our new baby, Liam, is 2. He toddles in the room, head tilted slightly back and curls bouncing, and it hit me like a bucket of ice water. Holy crap, this is the baby that came to visit us. I mean, there is absolutely no doubt in my mind. Now, on top of that, whenever Liam is staying the night elsewhere, like with my parents, he comes to visit me in my sleep. For example, one time he came and just smiled at me while I was taking a nap. He was in a little red shirt, and his hair was cut short. He left with it long. The next day I go to pick the kiddos up from mom, and lo and behold his hair is freshly shorn and he is wearing a little red shirt. I asked my mom, "Did he wear this yesterday?" And she replies, "Oh, yeah he did, but he insisted on wearing it today, so he is." So, I look at him and say, "Did you go see Mama yesterday?" In Mama's dreams he just looked at me, all big blue eyes and serious, and nodded his head. A week ago, I got a phone call from my next door neighbor, late in the evening asking if I can help him move a mattress upstairs. His mom is ill and has a big heavy sleep number bed. I of course ran over to help because they're great neighbors. I get over there and his friend, who is also a priest, was there to help. I helped them figure out how to separate the mattress from the bed, so we could fit it upstairs. We get it all moved up and back in place when my neighbor asks if I can help them move an armoire upstairs too. I think nothing of it and we pull it out of his travel trailer and start bringing it up the front stairs of his house. This is where I died. The front stairs are 11 steps. I was on the lower end of the armoire about 6 steps up when my neighbor and his friend lose a handle on the armoire and it comes crashing down on me and I fall backwards towards the pavement. I then suddenly wake up in my dining room to my phone ringing, and my wife asking me if I'm going to answer the phone. It's my neighbor asking me if I can help move a bed upstairs for his mom. I go over there and meet his priest friend again, as this has been the first time I met him. I say I can help with the bed, but I cannot help with the armoire. I then proceeded to tell them I'm pretty sure I just died. I spent the next hour talking with the priest. He had so many questions. My neighbor didn't believe it until I described the upstairs bedroom in perfect detail, down to the metal mattress frame on the floor and the intricate headboard leaning against the wall, and I had never been upstairs in their house before. My husband recently took an overnights job to help us out during COVID. He's only been there about 2 weeks and works evenings and overnights, 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. Last night was no different. He left home around 8:15 p.m. Our daughter, age 11, and I decided to make it a movie night. Around 11, I heard keys in my back door and the usual sounds my husband makes when he comes home. I creep out to the kitchen to make sure it was him, and it was. He told me he needed to grab his knee compression sleeve, walks down the hall, says hi to our daughter as he passes the living room, and goes upstairs. He came back down, gave me a kiss and left again. We finished our movie and went to bed. In the morning when he got home I made a joking comment about him forgetting his knee sleeve. He was genuinely confused as I recalled the previous night. Our daughter confirmed everything I said and he still was acting confused. I pulled up our security camera on my phone to show him when he popped in. But there was no footage from the night before, or any other night, of him coming home after he's left for work. My daughter and I both heard him, saw him, and I touched him. But he was never home during that time. Nothing else out of the ordinary happened that night. We seriously have no idea what happened. Back in early July of this year, my family and I were going on a road trip to Montana to visit our grandparents. Prior to the trip, I had a horrible feeling about going. I kept having flashes of car accidents in my head, and I was sure that we were going to get in one if we left. It was so strange, because I have a pretty severe anxiety disorder, but this didn't feel like my anxiety at all, and I never have anxiety about road trips. I love them. So we left Saturday of that week. I had told my parents I had a bad feeling about driving up there, but they dismissed me as being anxious, but I had never felt so certain about something in my life. Getting into that car felt like signing my death sentence. So we get about 6 hours in, and at this point, I start to think I was being ridiculous, and a wave of calmness just washes over me. This is where things get strange. My dad passes an underpass and everything just shifts. I feel like I saw everything in slow motion for a whole 4 or so minutes. My parents were joking beforehand, but their faces moved so slowly, and then the light in the car started to shift. This was the scary part because I thought I must have been going insane. For a few seconds, there was a huge illumination of light into our car, and I looked at my family, and could not tell who they were, or what they meant to me. And then it's like everything just came back. The light shifted back, and I knew who everyone was, but it felt like something imperceptible had changed. I closed my eyes and tried to make sense of the past few minutes, and when I reached back to remember, I saw blood, our car and another minivan in shambles on the side of the highway right beyond the underpass. I remembered sensations I should not have known, the smell of something burning, the way I couldn't breathe. But this never happened. Yet I remember that the car in front of us had switched lanes even though there was a truck in front of us, realized it at the last second, and hit us with a lateral impact. I have no history of psychosis, and I have never been in any sort of car accident. This wasn't PTSD, and I have never had anxiety over being in the car in any sort of way prior to this. And maybe I could have just brushed it off, but I still think about it when I'm driving in my own car. And it's made me a more cautious driver.